on my way to school, or any other environmental issue that kind of pertained with our community that we never really gave it a second thought. And so being able to make progress in the environmental justice and climate justice to these communities and to the Latinx communities is something that I'm really excited to be a part of. Before we do begin, I do want to make sure that all of our attendees are muted with the exception of the individual who is speaking. And also any other upcoming programs. As you will hear from the speakers this evening, we have a single focus and our need. Thank you so much from the LA Climate Reality. Yay. Okay, it's great to have this entire collection of individuals from all over to all focus on this topic and this outreach, which is crucial to the progress of climate justice. What we are focusing on today is the need for our community to register to vote, to make our voices heard in the issues that kind of pertain the most to the Latinx communities. It's something that is crucial to not only for environment, but as we can see, and as some of us may understand or know, that it's not always just the environment that's being segregated or biased towards a certain community, but it's other issues like health, like oh my goodness, like the economy, like racial discrimination or workers' rights. So it's all a fight that we all must continue to fight together. So thank you so much for joining us. I also want to thank our partner organizations, the DFW Climate Reality Project, EarthX, JOLT, Mi Familia Vota, and Green Source DFW. Yes. And thank you everyone for lending their guidance and support. And we will continue to have similar programs throughout the year. With everything of COVID, it will be playing it either virtual or will be adaptable to the conditions that arise. But we'll keep you all updated through emails and through different events and through our social media. So please make sure to check that out and please stay tuned. And now please let me introduce to you our first speaker. Roger Knutson is the chairman of the Climate Reality Project, the DFW chapter. He is a PhD in the Department of Psychology in Miami University, Oxford, Ohio. Yes. He's retired for 10 years and he devotes himself to climate activism. And he is here to share a few words about this evening. So hello, Roger. And
Elena, thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction.
Thank you for coming.
And good evening to everyone on the call. We're delighted to have you here. And I'm really pleased that oh, I got muted by the host. Am I okay, Patty? Oh, I'm back on. Okay, well, let me say again, welcome everybody. I'm really pleased that we can bring this program to you tonight. I want to thank Elena especially. She is one of our newest and also one of our youngest members, and yet she has taken the lead in putting this project together. I think that's consistent with what we're seeing in climate activism, not only in this country, but all around the world. It really is the young people who are taking the lead and inspiring the rest of us to keep going. And I also want to thank Patty Silva and the whole team at EarthX. You've been supportive of our chapter from the very beginning. And I'm very excited tonight that we have speakers both from JOLT and from Mi Familia Vota. You're both groups that we're hoping to collaborate with going forward. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a brief presentation to give to you. And let me pull that up and get my slides going. And Patty, you can let me know if this should be on the screen now and good. Yes, okay. So for those of you that don't know Climate Reality Project, we're a climate action organization. The organization was founded in 2006 by former Vice President Al Gore to increase awareness of the threats that are posed by a warming planet and to catalyze urgent action to solve the climate crisis. Since its founding, Mr. Gore and the organization has trained more than 22,000 climate activists in 154 countries around the world. More recently, in 2017, here in the US, the organization launched a local chapters program in cities and colleges, and we now have far more than 100 of those local and city chapters and college chapters. The Dallas-Fort Worth chapter is one of the most active, we're told, in the Southwestern United States, and we're growing very rapidly. Now, normally when I give a presentation, I have a lot to say about the climate crisis. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on that tonight. I'm assuming that those of you who are on this call are already quite aware of the situation. I will just say that at Climate Reality, we follow the science, and the science is very clear. The climate crisis is real, it's happening now, it's caused by us, by our activity, and the primary cause is the pollution that comes from burning fossil fuels. And we know, of course, that it's getting worse. To take just one example, as temperatures around the world rise, so has the frequency of worldwide extreme weather catastrophes. In 2018, there were 4 times as many as there had been just in 1980, not even 40 years before. But it's not just the frequency. The severity of these catastrophes is also increasing. The storms have stronger winds. The floods are bigger because the rainfall is heavier. The fire season is longer. The fires are burning hotter. The droughts last longer. And so the destruction is greater and greater, and more people are killed. And the costs just keep rising. In 2019, last year in the United States alone, we had $14 billion weather and climate disasters. 3 of those right here in Texas: Tropical Storm Imelda, the hailstorms in North Dallas in March, and then the tornadoes in October 20 when one storm dropped 10 tornadoes on Dallas. These are billion-dollar disasters. And it's important to know that Texas always has more than its share of these disasters. If we look back at 1980 to 2018, the US has had 238 of these disasters. 105 of those have been in Texas. That's 44%. But crucial for the presentation tonight, we also know that the effects of these disasters and other climate-related threats are not spread equally across all communities and all populations. Children and older adults are particularly vulnerable to heat and to certain kinds of pollution. Low-income communities, communities of color, and indigenous peoples have all suffered disproportionately the effects of the climate crisis, in many cases going back decades. And if anything, the LatinX community has suffered the most. The injustice is the most pronounced. If we look at the 12 years between 2003 and 2015, Latinx Americans have been exposed to 63% more pollution than they produce in their communities. And let me give just a couple of additional facts that go along with this exposure to pollution. More than 80% of Latinos live in counties that violate at least one of the federal anti-pollution laws. One consequence is that Latino children are 2.5 times more likely to develop asthma than non-Hispanic whites. So when we look at the latest data on COVID-19, a respiratory illness that's made worse in populations exposed to pollution where asthma rates are high, it's no surprise that in communities of color, both the Black and the brown communities, the death rates are dramatically higher in every age group than they are for white communities. Maybe it follows from that in the Yale data, we learn that Latino communities are more concerned or even alarmed than non-Latinos about global warming. And at the same time, they are the communities that are least likely to be contacted by organizations working on the climate crisis, like the Climate Reality Project. These numbers just blow me away. So one of the major goals for the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter this year is to begin to address this imbalance in outreach to Latinx communities. I had the opportunity earlier this year in February to attend a forum put on by Jolt in Houston, the Movimiento Forum for their young leaders. We were hoping to go from there to outreach to those communities with our presentations, but the pandemic shut down large gatherings and live presentations. The good news is that Elena was at that forum, learned about climate reality, got involved with our chapter, and tonight, with her leadership again, this is our first effort to get back on track in outreach to these communities. We are planning to do more. So quickly, I want to just summarize the kind of reality that I think we're now working with in this time of an ongoing pandemic and a nationwide series of protests for racial and social justice. We know that the climate crisis is not separated from any of these other crises. It can't be separated from the crisis in social and racial justice, the ongoing that we're seeing evidenced in the ongoing Black Lives Matter protests all over the country. It can't be separated from the economic crisis in the US that's rooted in extreme income inequality and an economic system that consistently puts profits ahead of people. The climate crisis can't be separated from the crisis in healthcare. COVID-19 and the pandemic has made this not just obvious, but tragically obvious. And it can't be separated from the crisis in this country of now fighting what seem to be endless wars and a war-based economy. When we put all of that together, I think we recognize that the climate crisis, as faith groups have been telling us for years, is fundamentally a moral crisis. The Poor People's Campaign puts this very bluntly. They call ecological devastation one of the primary evils because carbon pollution is destroying the very conditions that make life possible on this planet. And the Poor People's Campaign has sounded a national call for moral revival. So the need for urgent action on these issues is clear. But when we give our presentations, people in our audiences say almost every time, I'm just one person. What can one individual do about something as large, as complex, as challenging as the climate crisis? I love the answer that comes from Bill McKibben. He's the founder of 350.org and one of our great authors on the climate crisis. Bill McKibben responds by saying, stop being an individual. Because individuals acting alone can't solve the climate crisis. But what individuals can do is form movements. And movements, as history teaches us, can change the world. So we call on everyone in our audiences and our audience tonight to join the movement, the fight against the climate crisis and all of the other crises that it intersects with. That starts, of course, and we'll hear a lot about this tonight, with voting. To call the elections of 2020 momentous is a grand understatement. Be sure you're registered to vote. Be sure everyone you know is registered to vote. Have a plan for voting. And then when you go to the polls, take everyone you know with you. And then learn more. Request a presentation from our chapter. A presentation for your friends, for a group in your church or your school, your organization, your club, your business. We will come and present to any group, no matter how small, no matter how large. We'll present on your schedule, and of course the presentations are free. We have native Spanish speakers in the chapter, so while we normally present in English, we can present in Spanish as well. My contact information is on the screen. I'll drop it in the chat when I'm done. Get in touch with me, or if you want to request a presentation tonight, put your contact information in the chat and I'll get in touch with you. We would love to come and talk with your group. And then the next step, join an effective and active organization. We have speakers from 3 groups here tonight. I'll recommend ours, of course. Apply for training with Climate Reality Project. Our live trainings will return. They're all postponed this year by the pandemic. They will return next year as soon as conditions are safe for large gatherings. They're normally 3 days long. They're led in person every day by Vice President Gore. They are intensive. They're highly educational. You will come home with tools in your toolbox that you didn't go with. And of course, they're also free. You pay for your transportation to get there. You pay for a couple nights in a hotel, a couple of meals, and scholarships are available, especially for students. Just go to climaterealityproject.org/training. Get yourself on the list to stay informed about the next training coming. And when you hear about it, apply early. We have overwhelming application as more and more people are motivated to take action on this crisis and want to get involved. Let me close with this. We know that no outside group can set environmental goals for your communities. What we're aiming to do at Climate Reality is partner with you around your goals, around the environmental threats that you identify in your communities. And now we want to partner with all of these organizations around not losing the momentum that we're seeing all over the country with protests and people in the streets demanding social, racial, economic, and environmental justice. We have to carry that momentum all the way to November, and then we all have to vote. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our speakers. Again, welcome to everyone who's joined the call. I will stop sharing my screen at this point and hand it back to Elena. If I can find my mouse, I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Roger. That was really insightful. I did want to ask, you challenge people to join the movement. However, for many people with a lot of time on their hands, there are a lot of things on their plates. They may not always have the time to, whether that be a week, an hour a week, or sometimes even less than that. What can a person do, or what can a person accomplish with that time in order to help with climate justice?
Sure. No, thank you. That's a great question. And I think the simple answer to that comes, in my mind, from Catherine Hayhoe out at Texas Tech in Lubbock, one of the internationally known leading scientific experts on the crisis. She says the simplest, the most basic action you can take is to start talking about the crisis. Just talk about it. Bring it up in conversation. Keep the attention on it. That doesn't take a great deal of time, but it can be very empowering to voice your concerns, to listen to the concerns of other people around you, and you may motivate and inspire them to begin taking action in whatever time they have available. So even if you have very limited time, start to talk about it and you can make a difference.
Thank you, Roger. And what other special benefits can one get from attending one of the Climate Reality Project trainings?
Oh, the trainings are something that I would recommend to everyone on this call. You know, one of the things that's very difficult to do as a climate activist, as an activist of any kind, is to stay motivated, to keep your own spirits up. We tackle big problems. They don't get solved overnight. You have to make a commitment to be in it for the long haul. To walk into an auditorium, as I did, it really chokes me up. I went to Atlanta with Climate Reality last March for the training there as a mentor, and you walk into an auditorium with nearly 2,000 people from all over the world, all coming together around their common concern, their common motivation to take action to solve this crisis. It's more than inspiring. You begin to make connections, you form relationships, and those are the things that keep you motivated, and moving forward in your own work as an activist. So we're all in this together. Go to one of the trainings, build the communities that you're connected with, and then get back to your own activism.
Thank you so much, Roger, for that information and for, yeah, that inspiring like series of stories. It's really beneficial to have someone talking from the viewpoint of like science and and having someone who's interested in making a difference in climate activism. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Now we're going to go ahead and present our next speaker. She's a fellow Rio Grande Valley person, which is great. Her name is Marlene Plua. She started off as a project manager in January for JOLT. Marlene knows firsthand the inequalities and hardships perpetuated by poverty. Previously, before this, she worked at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid as a director of community outreach and engagement. She has led various organizations representing the narratives of borderlands and co-founder of Fuerza del Valle Workers Center. Marlene is a first-gen college graduate from Kalamazoo College, where she received a bachelor's degree in anthropology, sociology with a concentration in media studies. And she also studied Spanish language and literature at the La Universidad de San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador. So Marlene is passionate and a fierce leader for working for her son and for the next generation to come. I'm super excited to have her here. And without further ado, please welcome Marlene.
Thank you so much, Helena. And I also want to, I want to thank you and thank the Climate Reality Project for, inviting Jolt to be part of this panel discussion alongside many amazing community advocates who are doing this work. So first of all, I want to start off by briefly sharing a little bit about Jolt. So JOLT is not an acronym, rather it is what it means, an abrupt, rough, or violent movement. So at JOLT, we want to jolt the system with our voices. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but like erupt, the systems. But I mean, that's really the goal, right? And we believe that Latinos are the political movement that will change the political course in Texas. According to the 2018 US Census, 60 million Latinos live in the US, of which 50% are under the age of 18. So now we're in 2020, this is the moment where we need to continue. And it's now to continue, mobilizing, offering platforms and spaces for young Latinx students and folks to be in this movement, right? We know that the political power begins at the polls and that we have the power to decide who gets elected, what issues matter, and what gets decided. So at JOLT, our goal is to mobilize Latinos from across Texas to win on the issues that matter to them, to us. These issues include immigration, ending student debt, healthcare, and climate justice. And the way that we're doing this is through storytelling. We know that in our communities, the narrative, the storytelling is something that is just, it's part of who we are. It's so rooted back to our, ancestors. This is how we communicated through storytelling, and it's so powerful, right? So this is one of the key components that we, do the best that we can to provide those training, those skills for young people, right? Leadership development, we develop different programming that will offer different leadership skills like digital organizing, public speaking, social media. So most recently, we just hosted our Arriba las Mujeres Keeping It 100 that provided 25 young women of color ages 18 through 25 with training tools on issue-based advocacy, digital organizing, social media, media relations, and how to apply that to civic engagement. We also do a lot of community and student organizing that is done through the student chapters. Currently in the state of Texas, we have approximately about 20 plus student chapters throughout Texas. And this is a space for students to build their networks and work on various issues together. We also focus on census right now. This is critical. Right now, we need to ensure that everyone gets counted, not only in Texas, but across the nation, because I mean, in the last census, we were severely undercounted. I come from the border region, right? I live in the south, como Elena, we both were raised in the southernmost tip of Texas and the border of US, Texas and Mexico. And our communities were severely undercounted. We have, we did suffer from allocation of funding, and our area just keeps on getting hurt by continued natural disasters. And we have, really large still percentage of low-income families in the border region. So we want to make sure that people go out and, fill out the census. And that's been one of the priorities this year. We have a census organizer who just has done an exceptional job in conducting extensive outreach and mobilizing the LatinX community to fill out their census. And trust me, everyone out there, if you're doing the census, we know that there's still a lot of people that haven't filled it out. So, good job, keep on advocating, or if you know someone that hasn't, just keep on raising the voice, right, on the census. Sorry, I know I'm spending too much time on census, but I think it's such an important right now issue. And of course, our ultimate goal at JOLT is that through all these programming, through these activities, is that Latinos become civically engaged and registered to vote. Again, I'm going to go back to that statistic. Remember, 60 million Latinos live in the US, and of which 50% are under the age of 18. So this is the time, young people, ahorita, register to vote, mobilize your communities. It's so important and so critical. So that's really what we're doing right now, JOLT. And just I want to, kind of drop the stat too. It's projected that in 2030, Latinos will be the majority group. So it's so critical. And currently, Latinos only make up 14% of the Texas legislature, at least in the state of Texas. So we need to have more Latino representation. And when I say Latino and Latinx communities, I do want to just make sure that I bold this in there. Latinx communities are very diverse. So that includes like Asian Latinos, Afro Latinos. Like, I just want to make sure that if I'm referring to that there's a range of diversity in our communities, right? Okay, so with that is a little bit about JOLT. That's what we're doing. That's what the focus and the vision and the goals are of JOLT. Now I want to talk a little bit about why it is important for JOLT to prioritize climate justice. At this moment. Protecting the environment is one of the most pressing issues for young Latinx activists and voters in Texas. Roger pointed out about Movimiento 2020 back in February. We hosted that event, and we had a student leadership summit as well. And we provide, we did workshops and sessions. It was like a really amazing event. But after that event, we realized that climate justice is a priority issue, not only for the JOLT membership, but just Latinx youth across Texas, and as we know, on a nation and an international scale, right? So this is a critical issue right now. In Texas, currently, it leads the rest of the country actually in wind energy. And it is one of the states that is quickly transitioning to solar energy. So Texas has the capacity to become the leader in renewable energy, not only in the state level, but on a national level. So these are moments where we are, where we need to leverage the power and innovation of young Latinos to transition our economy to a green economy. And when we're talking about green economy, it's not just transitioning to renewable energy sources, but also creating green jobs. Again, I grew up, I know the firsthand, right, the cycle of poverty. And I know how important, it is to have a job. I mean, I was raised by a single mother, and, at the time, we don't talk about environmental justice. We don't talk about climate justice in our households. And it's not so much because we don't care or we don't want to know or are not interested. It's because we're constantly thinking and surviving. We're always in survival mode, or at least, the way I grew up, it was survival mode. And the thing that I was taught growing up is like, tenemos que tener comida en la mesa, right? But we, that's our priority. Our priority is also to be, have some economics to survive, to have food in the table. So it's important when we talk about a green economy that we also are thinking about, okay, green economy doesn't just mean a transition to renewable energy resources. It means that we need to create green jobs, because we still have a lot of families, you know, that they need to sustain their families, and they need to have good jobs in order to make sure that they bring food to the table. So that's on a personal level. And I'm very passionate about that issue, and I think it's so important, you know, that we think about that. So with that, it's such an important time right now to mobilize, and it's important that we do offer, as I mentioned before, these platforms and spaces for young Latinos to be part of this movement. COVID-19 definitely shed a light, right, on the continual racial inequalities that continues to plague our communities of color, particularly Black and Brown communities. And, you know, and it's not a coincidence, you know, when we're talking about environment, that the industries and companies, you know, they will strategically choose communities of color, you know, because, you know, they think that we don't have the political power, you know. And that means if we don't have the political power, then that means in their mind that we won't have the power to fight for our rights, right? And this is a time so critical and crucial that, you know, we are offering, you know, this platform, you know, and that there are so many young people right now that are just ignited and ready to make that change. And we just did not see that with COVID-19, but with the Black Lives Matter movements and the uprising, right, of young people and saying, ya basta, this is enough, we are tired, you know? So this is really a crucial moment to ensure that we are, you know, being inclusive, and that young people are leading the way. And it's not just young people, but young people of color. Because I'm going to talk more on my personal work. Helena talked about I working in Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and I did a lot of environmental justice work while I was at Trala. And one of the things that I quickly noticed is that a lot of the environmental justice movements are led primarily by white males, by white women, right? And that's great. We need that. We need to reach the support. But what is more critical, you know, when we're talking about climate justice, is that we also make sure that we're offering a space for people of color to lead the movement. Because at the end of the day, the people who are impacted are the ones who know, and they're the ones who should be moving those movements. So we need to create spaces, if we're going to build these platforms, for people of color to lead it forward, to give that space for people of color to be the leaders, who they are already the leaders. Nomás estamos proviendo las herramientas y el apoyo para que sigan adelante. So I do want to just point at that, you know, it's something that, you know, I don't want to derail or anything, but it's something just to keep in mind. And that's something that at Joel, we are thinking through and we're reassessing. And as we're creating, you know, an agenda as to how we build a climate justice campaign, that we are being very intentional that this is going to be a movement led by young people of color. Okay, so that's where we stand at this point. Again, our vision is that we build a progressive climate agenda that will be led by LatinX youth across Texas, and that they will promote the policy change on a local and state level. You know, and this is so, you know, it upsets me, but this is the reality that we're in. You know, nearly 25 million of the country's 56 million Latinos live in the 15 worst areas for ground level ozone pollution, which puts people at risk for premature death, lung cancer, asthma, and other health issues. And these areas include Los Angeles, Phoenix, Denver, Las Vegas, Dallas, New York, and Houston. So imagine that, going back to that. So it's not a coincidence, again, why many of these cities, many of these companies and industries, you know, are putting their companies in low-income communities, particularly communities of color, and we're suffering, we're being impacted. Another thing that, you know, in the environmental justice, climate justice movement, you know, we talk a lot about, like here in Texas, we have gone through so many natural disasters. I personally, my family and I, we were hit we were impacted by Hurricane Dolly back in 2008. We were impacted by Hurricane Alex in 2010. And then it became almost like a pattern where we were being hit by constant flooding events. Our last flooding event, and Helena, you can remind me because I'm pretty sure in San Benito or, como se llama, you were all impacted, pero it was in 2018 and we were just hit tremendously. And doing this work, so many families were denied FEMA assistance. For Hurricane Dolly, that was the first time, at least, while I worked down there, that a lawsuit was filed against FEMA because FEMA had denied about 98% of families in the Rio Grande Valley, this is the border, right, FEMA assistance. So that's just disappointing, very sad, and it really shows why we need to mobilize, organize, and ensure that we're breaking these systems, that we are going to dismantle this because this is unfair, it is unjust, and we need to uplift the voices of everyone and say enough is enough. In the nation, there are 80% of our nation's farm workers are Latinos. So we know that farm workers are being exposed to many environmental issues right now. I was a farm worker myself, so I know that there's so many things that we are exposed to, which includes pesticide exposure, right? And they're the ones, Latinos right now who are working in the fields, are the ones who are pretty much, that's where we're getting a lot of our vegetables and fruits, right? And we definitely, that was uplifted again in COVID-19, where they are essential workers, and they're the ones who are unfortunately, being impacted, environmentally and as well with their health. So one of our goals at JOLT is to provide education tools to students about the role of coyo and oil in climate change. We want to really tackle, air pollution, water pollution, the health outcomes for communities of color, and the intersection between corporate interest and the erosion of indigenous rights. One of the focuses, or for example, right, the campaign would shine light on the Texas Railroad Commission. There's still a lot of misunderstanding what the Texas Railroad Commission does in the state of Texas. And it's interesting because it is the state agency that regulates the oil and gas industry, the pipeline safety and liquefied petroleum gas industry, and it is also the oldest regulatory agency. But there's a lot of misunderstanding of what they do. I think there's this mindset that the Texas Railroad Commission only regulates railroads, but actually in 2005, the commission ceased regulating railroads. So I think there is a need to further education. And I think through this progressive agenda, providing those educational tools and making sure that we build a plan that, again, it's coming from it's being built with students, that this will ultimately lead for students to create policy changes at a local and state level. So with that, again, JOLT right now is prioritizing this issue. Everyone who's here, please get involved, whether it's with JOLT, with Climate Reality Project, with Mi Familia Vota. There's so many organizations out there, and I think at this moment it is about collaborating with one another because it takes a village to create change. And thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Marlene. And I know, just personally, there was intense flooding my freshman fall semester of college that because of it, I almost had to drop out because of lack of funds, that all of the resources had to go to that. So it's something that is very prevalent, and we thank you for not only sharing your story, but making the steps to empowering the community around you as well. So thank you so much for that. I just want to ask one quick question before we go ahead and move on to our next presenter. How is it that young Latinx adults can get involved in JOLT's work?
So I, just given for time purposes, I will send the information to Helena and Patty, but we have an amazing organizing team, and then I will share those slides, and that way you can, email it to the participants, but we have organizers. We have four organizers, one organizer in Houston, Austin, and Dallas, and then we have Leslie, who's our census organizer. So we can provide you with their contact information if you want to get more involved with JOLT. We also have, you can go to our website, jolttexas.org, and you can definitely, go to the website. You can sign up to volunteer. We have volunteer hours every Wednesday between 6 and 8 p.m. And our volunteers are so critical to the work that we're doing. It really, they're doing some amazing work and working on some amazing projects. But again, yeah, just go to jolttexas.org. And you can, sign up to be a volunteer, or if you want to start a student chapter, definitely, reach out. And again, I will send all that information to you ladies, so you can forward that to the participants. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you so much. Something that was really important, and that actually segues straight into our next presenter, is the importance of that personal narrative and the importance of the Latinx youth. And that is someone that an individual who's really encompassed that and has really made a lot of changes, not only around the school, but really also all the way to like Washington, is our next presenter. He is also a college student. He is a Mi Familia Vota intern, and he's doing a lot of progress with climate justice and climate reality. We were both at the JOLT Movimiento movement conference this past semester with Joe at Houston, and it's just a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ariel. Ariel, thank you so much for coming, and without further ado, please take the stage. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. And yes, thank you, Elena. When you asked me to be here, I was so grateful and so thrilled. Yes, I will keep this concise. I'm known to be a fast talker, so hopefully that won't be too much of a problem for me. But yes, as Elena said, my name is Ariel Alaman. I'm actually a pre-law student, and I will be attending the University of Houston to finish my degree. I'm so proud to be here to represent Mi Familia Vota, which is an organization who has done so much for me personally and for the Latino community in general. Mi Familia Vota is more than just a civic organization, a civic engagement organization. They're not just trying to engage the Latino community, they're trying to ensure that the Latino community is occupying space, physical space, and being in the room. And so thanks to their efforts, I have been honored to represent them in the halls of Congress in DC, having lobby meetings for climate change in all these different congressional offices. And I would just like to speak specifically to youth empowerment here, and let you know that when you're in these spaces, when you enter these lobby meetings with these representatives and their staffers, one of the first things they will tell you is, wow, it's so great to see someone so young, so interested in making change. And sometimes, it's genuine, they mean that. But other times it's patronizing. They're like saying to you that like, oh, you're just a young person and that you don't really know. And so it's on all of us to be informed, to know as much as we can, because they weren't expecting us to walk in there and notify them that Latinos are a huge population, and to let them know that we do have over $1.5 trillion in a purchasing power in the United States. So it's kind of informing them, we are paying attention to you. And you can see it every day, especially if you're on social media. You see the most engagement from youth who are paying attention to all of these issues and gathering all the information they can and organizing so well. So to the youth, I would just like to say that, I'll rather just share a secret with you. We toss around this word power quite a bit. But the truth is that power is not something that you have, it's something that you prove. We use our voices as a way to express our power, but through our actions is how we prove we have it. And that's what we're doing every day. Every day that you meet someone, that you organize, that you're engaging with people, whether that be in Congress and meeting with like representatives, whether that be your city council, every day that's an opportunity for you to carry someone else's voice and to say and create change. This, issue of climate change, this issue is not easy. This is not an easy issue to tackle, but it's personal. As Roger has said, you know, the Latino community has been affected greatly and disproportionately by the effects of climate change. And so it is personal to so many of us. And it's on us to make it personal. Whenever you're talking to a lobbyist or when you're lobbying and speaking to representatives, you start by making that connection to your life. You let them know immediately how you have been affected, how your community has been affected, and how communities across the nation have been affected. Because, you know, a lot of people tend to think, you know, so narrowly that like we have all these other issues, but they fail to see the intersectionality of climate change and how it encompasses so many of these other issues. And thank you, Roger, for like speaking to those in your presentation, because it's so important to realize that without, you know, a clean environment, you know, none of these issues even matter because we won't be here. You know, speaking to representatives, it's not, especially even those that you think would be on this side, you know, and wanting to like fight for climate change. Often what we hear is that like they don't see the solutions, that they don't have the tangible solutions in front of them to easily implement. And which is not necessarily true, but they miss, you know, they want to be handed all the answers before they take any action. But as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said multiple times, we can only be what we have the courage to see. And so it's on us to have courage and take action and let them know that this is a possibility. And that though you can't see it now, it is a change that we need to make in our lives and to our nation. We need to have a clean economy, and it's for everyone. It's for the betterment of everyone in the world to have this. So, you know, youth, a lot of people underestimate us. They think that we don't have power. They think that we're just, you know, on Twitter, tweeting away, not saying anything of use. But that's just not true. You know, the most people that are aware are, you know, the youth. And you see it today. And like in this past month, the Black Lives Matter movement, so many of these rallies and protests have been organized by youth. And so many of these like youth are leading all kinds of different issues. You see it on your campuses. And so just because you are young does not mean you are incapable of change. And that is something that everyone must know. I'll just quickly wrap this up with Dolores Huerta, who has said multiple times, every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person is a potential activist, and every minute is a chance to change the world. And we must conduct ourselves that way because, you know, this burden of climate change was left on our backs from people who failed to act. And so now it's ours to carry. But, you know, they are underestimating us, and we will be the ones to carry this up the hill and get things done. We are seeing the youngest people run for office. We're seeing younger and younger people enter the halls of Congress to talk about these issues and to tell them, I want you to take this action because it is what is necessary. And if they hear that, if we flood their lines, if we gather and we occupy those spaces, they're going to have to see us. And they're going to have to decide to take action or risk losing this vote. And that is our true power, is when we say, if you don't do this, you have not earned my vote and you will not be sitting where you are tomorrow.
Wow, thank you so much, Ariel. Those are incredible, moving words. We really do. Thank you for being here, and we really do appreciate everything you had to say. It's complete, like the truth. The youth will no longer sit by the sidelines. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Maureen Callan Taylor really also said that. Like it's a really great words of wisdom, words of encouragement and motivation. So thank you so much, Ariel, for that. I don't think we have time for a question, but I will go ahead and move on to Patty Silva, sorry. And our last speaker comes from both the Climate Reality Project, with whom she is a trained leader and a formed committee chair member, and who's making a difference in the community by staying informed and spreading science and information, as well as being a director for EarthX. Patty will be sharing with us a message in Spanish for all of our Spanish speakers, because we do want to make this recording available for everyone. But yes, please take it away, Patty.
Hi, Elena. Thank you. Gracias. Yes, my name is Patty Silva. First and foremost, I know my message is going to be really short, guys. So don't worry if you don't speak Spanish. It'll be brief. First, though, I want to thank Climate Reality Project, the DFW chapter, Roger, for inspiring us to create this. I'm going to call it a movement of what we're trying to do here. And we need people like Elena and Ariel and Marlene, and we're so thankful that they could join us today, as well as all of our attendees. Thanks for being here. And our partners, of course. For the past several years, I've worked with an organization that has taught me that education and awareness are two of the biggest things that we can support and do to create change. EarthX brings people together and provides a platform that amplifies not only problems but solutions. And we know that one of the most impactful ways to make our world better is through the power of our vote. And to that, I want to talk about a group that I want to be inclusive of. We've heard a lot about youth and we've heard a lot about activism this evening, but I also want to talk about a group of voters that are the Spanish speakers and the people that are here and they're eligible to vote, but perhaps they're scared and they're not doing it. So, para ellos hablo ahora. Me llamo Patti Treviño Silva. Soy proveniente de Monterrey, México. Y cuando llegué a los Estados Unidos hace como 30 años con mi familia, nunca pensé que ayudar a convencer a mi gente de lo impactante que es envolvernos en este proceso legal sería tan importante para mí. Yo me convertí en ciudadana naturalizada en más o menos como en 1990 y sin embargo para mí un recuerdo que tengo muy presente no es precisamente ese, sino algo que pasó más tarde como en el 2008, cuando mi mamá se convirtió en ciudadana ella misma. A mi papá también lo hizo, pero más tarde. Cuando mi mamá se convirtió en ciudadana, lo hizo con mucha emoción, pero con mucho miedo, con muchos nervios. Y cuando logró hacerlo, inmediatamente se registró para votar. Lo primero que hice es hablarle y convencerla de que teníamos que ir a votar en las elecciones de ese año. Todavía me acuerdo cuando llegué a recogerla y cuando la encaminé hacia el sitio electoral. Había muchas sonrisas ese día y nunca me dijo por quién votó, pero no me importó porque yo supe que desde ese momento ella se dio cuenta de su propio poder. Y como que le gustó y desde entonces ha votado cada vez que tiene la oportunidad. Para cierta gente hay temor en ir a las casetas a votar. Para otros creen que el tiempo no es importante, no tienen interés porque piensan que esa contribución no va a contar para mucho o no va a contar para nada. Pero yo no estoy de acuerdo. En 1963, el voto latino contó para mucho para alguien que en aquel entonces corría para presidente, John F. Kennedy. En aquellos días no éramos tantos como somos ahora. Desde entonces, políticos y sus líderes de campañas nos han puesto mucha más atención. No importa el resultado, a quién le vayan o cuáles son sus intereses, porque a veces no estamos votando por por representantes, estamos votando por medidas o por incrementos de impuestos, etc. No importa por quién votas, ya somos muchos y debemos estar dispuestos a ser contados. En los últimos años, los hispanos hemos crecido mucho en número y seguimos creciendo. Ahora en día, cada 30 segundos, otro joven latino o latina elegible llega a la edad de votar de 18 años. Cada 30 segundos. Ya somos aproximadamente como 32 millones de hispanos en los Estados Unidos con el derecho, el deber y el privilegio de poder votar. Claro que habemos también muchos para quienes no es posible y no están aquí legalmente. Hay que pensar en ellos, en los que tienen una necesidad y una voz, pero no la pueden usar de la manera que nosotros sí. En cómo ellos, de cierta manera, cuentan con nosotros para representarlos, sus intereses. Hay miedos y temores y falta de interés a veces, pero si nos ponemos a trabajar juntos, ahora podremos convencer a más y más a que se unan a este grupo que hace su voto contar y no hay que dejar que nos sigan llamando el gigante dormido. Los hispanos somos el grupo minoría más grande en los Estados Unidos, como ya es hora de que aprovechemos nuestro derecho y de que representemos a todos aquellos que no tienen la misma suerte de contar con el privilegio, ¿no? Okay, muchísimas gracias. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I hope to continue to work with our Spanish-speaking community and more events like this one, and I hope to see you there. I think it's going to take all of us doing what we can, and as all the previous speakers have shown us right now, there are many ways to get involved. Thanks.
And thank you so much, Patty, for your amazing words. It is, yes, it's really great. I know I was born in Monterrey as well, but I moved when I was 5, and my Spanish isn't nearly half as good. So being able to have that that voice as well, being able to translate and communicate that message amongst communities and between languages is such an important and incredible thing to have. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead, and that does conclude our program for this evening. We will hope to hear from you. I know we heard a lot of great things over voting, over digital lobbying, over census, and we just really hope that everybody please get out that kind of information that we currently have. Please be aware of the programs that we have coming up as well. I do encourage you all to join us again for the next LatinX Voices programs in just a few weeks. We will be sending out email invitations, and thank you again for all of our speakers, Patty, Ariel, Marlene, and Roger. We do appreciate you coming and communicating with us your stories and your talks of all broad but more important discussions and topics. So I think you guys have all been able to give everyone a lot of things to think about in the coming days and various ways to get involved. So thank you so much, everyone. My name is Elena, and I really appreciate everybody coming out today and learning more about the LatinX program and the LatinX community as a whole. Thank you so much.